when the fans started to hear about me, the pressure became different. I was always under pressure within West Ham, always felt pressure of being Rio's brother. And I could hear the West Ham fans behind the goal shouting, he's not no Ferdinand, he's rubbish. He's this, he's that, he ain't no Ferdinand. He's a fake Rio. Like, I could hear everything. And I just remember walking back to my position and looking at the sky like, rah, is this what it is? And then that was the start of stuff that unraveled. I mean, I tried to turn on my BlackBerry curve afterwards because I went to turn it on and the BlackBerry just died instantly because there's so much water trying to come through it.
Baddie texting me, had to tell her it's not that deep, it's not that deep. She come with me, she roll with me, her nails on fleek, nails on fleek. It's not that deep, it's not that deep, it's not that deep, it's not that deep, it's not that deep. It's not that deep, your Baddie, keep it cool, please.
Yes, people, yes, people, yes, people. Welcome back to the We Talk Football podcast. Back like we never left. How you doing, Quakes?
I'm all good, brother. How are you?
Mate, I'm really well. Today, it's a big day for me. We're being joined by West Ham legend, it's Anton Ferdinand. How you doing, Anton?
I'm good, thank you. Thank you very much, man. I don't know how to take the legend business, I find it hard, man. Listen, I know I wore my heart on my sleeve for the club. I just find it hard to take the legend status, but
you're West Ham legend, bro. We remember the 06 final. Well, that team that you, Nigeria, Coco, Paul Konchesky, that's a memorable West Ham team, and you're an integral part of that. So hold that legend status, bro, because that's you.
I'm not saying I don't like it. It's hard, isn't it? It's just one of those. I'm a boy from Peckham, and West Ham fans say I'm a West Ham legend. It's just a bit, and I'm a West Ham fan, so I find it a bit mad.
Yeah.
Well, obviously, you alluded to it there. You're a boy from Peckham. Obviously, you were always following in your footsteps of Rio, who'd come through the academy a few years before you. Talk us how it all started for you at West Ham.
Oh, so at the age of 9, I was playing for a local club in Peckham called Athenley, and I got picked up by West Ham to go and train at their Centre of Excellence in Beckenham, their South London Centre of Excellence, which was in Beckenham. I went there. Like, I always knew I was a good player. Even from them ages, I knew I was good. I played with players on my estate. I wasn't the best on my estate, but I knew I was good. I knew I had levels. And I showed that when I went to West Ham. And I showed it so much that me and, Kieran Richardson, who went on to play for Manchester United, we got fast-tracked from there to Chadwell Heath. And we played like 2-3 years above ourselves. We trained 2-3 years above ourselves and played games every so often, 2-3 years above ourselves. And that was really the start of my upbringing. And that was before Rio was in the first team. So people at West Ham knew about me just as Anton. Okay, there's two brothers. There's Rio and Anton. They're both Ferdinand, but Rio wasn't a name yet. But it started then, and then obviously Rio went on to make his debut for West Ham, and then all of a sudden the fans started to hear about me. Because, okay, you see what Rio's doing. There's a younger Ferdinand in the academy, and when the fans started to hear about me, the pressure became different. I was always under pressure within West Ham, always felt pressure of being Rio's brother. I knew there was an expectance because he was so good. But the pressure just heightened because I was a fan traveling around the country, watching Rio and watching my team. Then fans asking, when are you going to play? And stuff like that. So there was always pressure. And it just heightened when the fans started to speak about it. I don't know whether that was just because of myself, because I was a fan myself and I knew what was required to play for West Ham. I knew what was needed. I knew what was wanted by the faithful Upton Park when you stepped out on the bowling pitch. Maybe I might have heightened it myself, but the pressure was definitely there. And then all I'd done really was I worked harder than anyone else. I mean, I'm not stupid. I knew I was going to get opportunities because I was Rio's brother. I knew they were going to come. But what I did understand, and the penny dropped when I left school, I knew opportunities were going to come, but I knew I had to be ready when them opportunities came. Because as much as anything, Rio weren't stepping on the pitch with me. I was stepping on the pitch. So I was the one who had to deliver. But what I did understand and what I did know is that I would only get one chance. Other players might get 2, 3, 4. I would only get one because I was there sometimes getting that chance because let's see what he can do. Let's see if he's going to be like Rio. So every time I got a chance to do something new. So when I got a chance to play my first game for the youth team, I knew I had to rip it up that first chance. Then when I had to play my first game for the reserves, I knew I had to train well. I knew I had to rip it up. Otherwise, I'll be back with the youth team straight away. When I trained for the first time with the first team, I knew I had to stand out in that training session. Otherwise, I'd never train with the first team again.
Who were some of those players, in your first training sessions that you felt that you had to impress?
All of them. I had to impress all of them. We're talking Joe Cole, Michael Carrick, John Moncur, Trevor Sinclair.
Not just top quality football players, but just like characters.
Yeah, Paolo Di Canio, Freddie Canute, Jermaine Defoe.
Those are some names. Those are some names.
You know what? The pressure wasn't just them characters. The pressure was they had all played with Rio. So in my head, I was thinking they're expecting Rio. So I have to deliver Rio, a Rio type performance in training.
Yeah.
I took that with me. And I've had this conversation with Joe Cole since then, where I've said to him how I felt going into them training sessions. And he was like, you know what, Anton? We never thought like that. We knew you was a good player before you come and everyone had heard about you before you'd come and train with us. We knew you were a good player because Glenn Road used to talk about me quite a bit.
Yeah.
But I just said, this is how I felt going into that session because you all played with Rio. And it was crazy, the contrast on how we fought. But yeah, it was them players. And then I made my debut. We went down that year. That was the first time I travelled that year, first time. And at the SJA Awards, I was talking to Trevor Sinclair about it. Like my first time I ever travelled with West Ham was Tottenham away. And because it's not overnight stay because it's in London. So I turned up at Upton Park for the pre-match meal. And obviously, all the pros, they have their bags packed for them. So their boots are packed, everything's packed for them. They just bring themselves and a wash bag. I had my boots with me in that because I weren't a pro yet. So I had my boots in my boot bag. I turned up and Trevor Sinclair just looked at me and just started laughing. And I was like, what are you laughing at? He went, why have you bought your boots? And I was like, well, because I've got to be ready. I might play in it. And he just started cracking it. He went, you ain't playing, bro. Yeah. Like, raw. Is that how it is, yeah? Like, I've no faith in me. What's going on? Like, he just started bending up. He just started cracking up.
But that's what you get though from like those old school players, and it's a bit more realness back in the day in terms of
you get tough love. Get tough love. Like if I was rude, say I was never rude, but if say I had manners, but if say for instance I was cheeky or something, I'll get a quick one of those. Bang, have that. No.
Yeah. And it's different, and obviously things progress and things go in a certain way because of the way that the society is going. But you hear a lot of footballers, a lot of ex-pros talk about how it was back in the day and how it kind of like toughened them up, and they just had a better appreciation when they finally did make it. So, for example, Sinclair ripping you there, you know that when you do finally put those boots on, you got to perform because you don't want to get ripped like that again. And it's different. And not to make you feel old here, but I'm a nerd when it comes to like football. So I'm on Transfer Markt, I'm on Wikipedia, and I'm looking at you and like when you made your breakthrough first season under Glenn Roeder, it was first division. It wasn't even champ back then. It was first division. So I talk about that season. It's not necessarily at the top level. It's not at the Premier League, but it's in the first division. And we know how tough that division was. So how important was it to maybe be playing in the division below before you made that step up when you got promoted to play in the Prem?
Do you know what? It was like my loan move, if I'm honest. I never went on loan. Never, ever. I'm one of the only players that have come through West Ham that never went on loan. and went straight into the first team. I think I might be the only one. Maybe Declan might be the other one, but everyone else has had to go on loan and went on loan. That championship season, them 2 seasons in championship, was like my loan move. I learned on the job. So it was hard for me at times because I made my debut at right back. And it was my fault for a goal, for the first goal in the first 2 minutes, live on Sky. And I remember, and it was the end where the West Ham fans were. David James in goal, he's coming out shouting, "You shouldn't even bloody be here." Give him, I can't say it live, but giving me all sorts. And I could hear the West Ham fans behind the goal shouting, "He's not no Ferdinand, he's rubbish. He's this, he's that, he ain't no Ferdinand. He's a fake Rio." Like, I could hear everything. And I just remember walking back to my position, looking at the sky like, rah, is this what it is? Like, I was just like, right, it's sink or swim time, Anton. Like, what do you want to do? And I just said, you know what? I ain't worked this hard to sink. I'm not just that. I'm representing my family, firstly, but I'm also representing the boys and girls that I grew up with in Peckham, who were better than me, by the way, but I was the one who made it. But they were better than me when we were growing up. But they never got the opportunities that I got. So I'm representing these guys too. And from Peckham, we don't sink, we swim. And I didn't make a mistake after that. We won the game 2-1, and that was the start of my footballing career for West Ham.
Yeah.
And that's how it started.
And you were instrumental for the club going forward from then. Obviously, the club got promoted from my memory in 2004, 2005, and you were a huge part of that. What were some of the key moments throughout that season that you can remember and that remember fondly?
The key moments were, for me, when I made my debut for England and under 21s. That was the first time West Ham fans saw me play as a centre-back. I was playing full-back for West Ham. I played right back, left back. I played centre midfield. I played right side of a three-man midfield for West Ham. I played everywhere but centre-back. And fans were judging me by not seeing me play in my rightful position. So I remember I used to have arguments with, well, not arguments, but I used to have discussions with Alan Pardew weekly. I used to knock his door weekly and say, like, play me centre-back, please, because I'm finding it hard because the fans are comparing me with Rio, but I'm playing out of position. Like, I want them to see the real me. And he was going to me, well, I can't play you centre-back, Anton. And I was like, why? And he's like, I can't trust you yet to play there. You're too young. I can't trust you. I was like, but I'm better than who's playing. I'm better than Christian Daly. No disrespect. I'm better than Malky Mackay. No disrespect. These are players who had fantastic careers and international careers, but technically, I knew I was already better than them. All they had over me was experience, and that was it. And he was like, because you're not experienced, I can't play you there. I was like, okay, well, send me on loan then, please. And he was like, I can't because you can play so many different positions. You're first off the bench. So I need you here. And we're going for promotion. And I was like, but that ain't helping me. That's not helping my development. And he was like, yeah, but for the club, it's better if you stay here. And because I'm a West Ham fan, I was like, okay, for the club, no problem. Then I got called up for England and 21s. And in the training sessions at England, they kept putting me at right back because they had watched me play. Obviously, they picked me on the basis of playing fullback for West Ham. But I kept putting myself in centre-back and pushing one of the centre-backs back to right back, and I kept putting myself in centre-back. So Peter Taylor, who's the manager at the time, he came to me and Anton, I see what you're doing. He said, are you a centre-back, Anton? I said, yeah. He said, what's your best position? I said, listen, I'll play anywhere, but if you want to see the best Anton, you play him centre-back. And he went, okay, no problem. You'll be making your debut at centre-back tomorrow night for the 21s. I was like, okay, cool. Again, the mindset is, this is my chance to show Alan Pardew that I'm a centre-back. I played centre-back that game. My debut was against Ukraine at the Riverside Stadium in Middlesbrough. And we won 3-0. I bossed it. I was a joke. everything. Everything, man. I'm telling you, I can't even sugarcoat it. I was a joke.
Who were some of the other players in that lineup? Do you remember?
James Milner played. I think either Michael Dawson or Callum Davenport played beside me. Darren Bent, Colton Cole, Jermaine Pennant. Some big names played in that.
Yeah, big names, yeah. It was a strong squad.
Scott Carson, I think, played in goal. Glenn Johnson might have played right back. I can't remember. Or Mike. No, it weren't Michael. Michael was too young. Glenn Johnson played right back. Stuart Downing, so some big names in there.
Yeah.
And then on the way home from there, I got a phone call. It was the gaffer. It was Alan Pardew. He rang and said, "How you doing, gaffer? You okay?" And he went, "Yeah. Firstly, I just want to say congratulations on making your debut for under 21s. I thought you was excellent, and I rang you just to tell you that on Saturday you'll be starting at centre back for West Ham United."
There we go. There we go.
Like, bang! I come off the phone. I was like, bang! My mum and my little sister were down. I told you, mum. I told you. That's what I was going to do. I'm going to show him. I told you. And yeah, man. I played against Crew Alexander away on the Saturday. Played against Dean Ashton.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and sorry, Dino, but I bossed you on the day.
He was a baller as well.
Yeah, we won the game, and I played centre back for the rest of my time at West Ham. Other than a few games, I played full back when I needed to. But then I started to cement my position at centre back in West Ham, and then when Elliot Wall came into the team, that's a massive highlight because we weren't doing so well. And then he put me and Elliot in. And we went on a 13-game unbeaten run to go into the playoffs. And we had momentum into the playoffs. And the fact of going into the playoff final, I was involved in the squad the previous year, but I didn't make the bench, which actually killed me. I was so upset that I didn't make the bench because I played the last 5 games of the season. I played left back. And then when we got into the playoffs, Pars didn't play me. And I was like, is he taking the mick? But I was still on the bench. But then when we got into the final, he didn't put me on the bench for the final. And I was so peed off with him. But all of that experience that I took from that final and that hurt that I took, remember we lost to Crystal Palace, that hurt as a fan and a player that I had from that year, I took it into the game when we played in the final against Preston. And I remember that was the year that David Nugent come on the scene and was banging in goals, left, right and centre. And a lot of the talk was about me versus him. And I was just, you know what? I was just like, you know what? This guy ain't getting a kick. I'm telling you, watch. I'm going to show people. People want to talk about him. That's fine. No problem. They're going to see a proper defender. This man ain't getting a kick. And that's what happened. And me and Elliot kept him and Creswell quiet for the full 90. And Bobby popped up with a goal. And that was the start of us getting promoted and getting into Premier League. I just remember that I still remember that day and night. After, I just remember kept going around saying, "What? Premier League? What? What?" I was saying it because I was living out my dream. I was about to play in the Premier League, and I was like, "Wow, this is mad," and I was just buzzing, man.
That's my childhood there. Like going back to your obviously you've the first year we lost, and obviously, do you think that going through that, you know, not being in the squad when you were picked for the next year, do you think that kind of just maybe helped your approach towards the game?
Yeah, it did. Do you know what? You can't beat experiences, man. See, when you do stuff, there's always something to learn. If you're doing something new, or not even if it's something new, if you're just doing something in your day-to-day life, you pick up an experience. It's identifying that experience and using it to better yourself when you need to, you know, and that happens in everyday life. It just so happened that I think because I was a West Ham fan as well, the hurt, it cut deep in that it cut so deep that it stayed with me until that following season when we got to the playoff final. And you know what? I was maybe 60 games in for West Ham. No, I was about 40 games in for West Ham, 50 games in for West Ham. And I didn't feel like a West Ham player until we got promoted. I didn't feel like a first team player until I got promoted, because I didn't feel like I was deserved to be called a West Ham player until I achieved something with the club.
Ah, okay.
But
so you think that obviously when you go through that hurt with Crystal Palace, do you think that was kind of just fuel for like motivation for the rest of the season, like kind of drove you and, you know, the other players that went through it in the squad so when you do line up against Preston next year, it was kind of just another game?
Yeah, 100%. I was just like, you know what? I want to feel like a West Ham player. And if we don't win this game, until I achieve something like getting back into the Premier League, I know what it means for our fans to get back into the Premier League. Until I achieve that, I ain't going to feel like a West Ham player. And that's all I've ever wanted to do, is feel like a West Ham player. And it wasn't until that happened that I actually felt like, you know what, okay, I've made it.
You definitely achieved it. And the fact, like, just talking to you like now, and obviously I know you from before, your career seems to be defined by confidence, like whether it be telling your mum saying, well, I told you this was going to happen, saying in your head, I'm going to lock off David Nugent, just different things in your career. You're just like, I'm going to do this, whether it be in Rio's younger brother and being like, I'm going to show you that I'm just not Rio's younger brother. I am Anton Ferdinand. Like your career's been defined by confidence and kind of just proving the doubters wrong, whether they be there or whether you're just like, these are doubters and I'm going to smash through the barriers. And when I look at the team that you played with, if we fast forward a couple of years, the West Ham team that I remember, I was going to some of these West Ham games because my brother was playing for them at the time. And like the 05-06 team, I look at the players that you played with, whether it be Dean Ashton came on the scene, Marlon Harewood, Shaka Hislop, like Nigel Rio-Coker, players that have got confidence. Do you feel like they rubbed off on you? Obviously, you've got Rio, you've got Les, you've got Kane in your family, you're the first family of football, you're the Ferdinands, but also the teammates that you played with. Are they part of the reason why you've got that inner belief and self-confidence that kind of drove you in your career?
No, that came from within, from a young age. That was installed in me from a young age. What I had in them was confidence in them, which allowed me to do my job. Like, people always ask me, who's the best defender you've played with? And I always say Danny Gabidon. And West Ham fans are the only people who would understand why I'm saying this. But for people that ain't West Ham fans, as a defender, if you don't have to worry about your partner and you can concentrate on your own game, it's such a massive help. And that's what the teammates around me done. I had confidence in them that allowed me to concentrate on my game. You know, yeah, I was an organizer, I was a talker, I was a character in the dressing room. I loved banter, but I was also serious to a point where the minute we crossed the white line, I was serious. And one thing that any player can tell you, when they came to West Ham and I was there, Tevez, Mascherano, Colton Cole when he first came, Marlon Harewood when he first came, I made sure they knew what it took to wear the West Ham shirt. What the fans expected of them, I made sure they knew. Yossi Benayoun, another one. That's why you see in my team, the flair players in my team were all grafters. They were flair players, but they all grafted. They didn't mind a 50-50 and they grafted and they ran with their men when they needed to. That's because they understood and knew, by the likes of myself, Mark Noble, and a few others, they understood and knew what it took to get the fans on side, what it took to wear the West Ham shirt. And I think that was just a big part of me. And that's where my confidence came out of, is that the fact that I knew what I needed to do playing for West Ham week in, week out. On the other side of it, I also knew I was a good player. I also knew I was confident in my ability, and I always had been and always was. And if anyone told me I couldn't do something, I'd say, okay, well, I'll show you. Because I've always had to do that, because people have always doubted me because I was Rio's brother. And that's probably the reason why I never fulfilled my potential, if I'm being honest. And the reason why I say that is because when I came out of Rio's shadow, when we got promoted to the Premier League, and then that following season, the Premier League and the FA Cup final, I went from walking into places going, oh, there's Rio's brother, to, right, there's Anton Ferdinand. And I had achieved coming out of his shadow, and it was the biggest achievement. I was like, oh, wow, phew, I've done it. And the weight was so great that come off my shoulders. It's almost like I'm relaxed because it's the biggest achievement that I could have done. And I think that played a part in why I probably never fulfilled my potential that I should have done.
So yeah, you mentioned there obviously with the FA Cup final. I remember crying as a kid. It's one of the lowest points in my life. Obviously, we had a strong season there, with finishing 9th and get to the FA Cup final. Steven Gerrard doing what Steven Gerrard does. Talk us through that day, Anton. What would you do differently, and what do you think went well on the day?
I don't want to talk about no joke. Like, it still haunts me today, man. I still wake up. Why did I do this? I don't want to change anything other than obviously scoring the penalty.
Mm.
Or Lionel Scaloni kicking the ball out of playing in.
Even then though, like, I mean, he got hounded, didn't he? Like, I remember obviously, and then he went to the World Cup later that summer.
Yeah,
I remember he got hounded by West Ham fans for that. But I mean, yeah, obviously clearing the ball to Steven Gerrard there, you can't do that. But then for Steven Gerrard to step up and do it, it's just ridiculous.
Of course, but it's like it's an unwritten rule within football. It's common sense in football. The last seconds, you kick it into Rose head.
You got to.
They haven't got those rules in Argentina, I don't think. You know what I mean?
You know, I swear, when the ball shot past me, and I turned and it went in, I just sat, put my hands to my knees. I was nearly sick. Man. And then, listen, to be fair, we battered them, man, on the day. We just had, you know what? We just had no fear, man. That my West Ham team, had zero fear, especially that year. We went places, we went everywhere with an air of confidence that we were going to win games. That's just the way that we was. We played with freedom. We played, as I said, our flair players were grafters. Our flair players worked hard first, played second, and unlocked doors. The team was a joke. And I say it like, obviously, this West Ham team's achieved more than what we achieved. But I would say my team was more exciting.
And you had a super strong season that individually. I mean, I remember you winning Premier League Player of the Month in January.
Yeah. Can I just say, for everyone for all the people that say, Anton only played the Premier League because he was Rio's brother, I think I'm only one of 13 or 14 centre-backs that have won Premier League Player of the Year since it started, by the way. Can I just say that?
Yeah. I know. Like, I know you're a player, Anton. You haven't got to tell me. That's what I'm saying. But what I was going to say is, I think that was like a really strong season for you individually. And obviously we had the horror show in Germany later that year with the World Cup. And do you think that was your best chance to get an England cap that season?
Yeah, I just missed out on the World Cup squad.
Oh, really?
After that, so what people didn't know, what West Ham fans didn't know, because I didn't want it public, because I didn't want players that I was playing against knowing that I was injured. I had a hernia, a bad hernia, for I think the last 3-4 months of the season, where, just to give you a bit of meat on the bones to what the hernia is, I couldn't. The morning of the FA Cup final, and this was happening for a few months. Every morning, I couldn't just wake up, sit up, and get out of bed. I couldn't do that. I had to sit. I had to roll out of bed. Like, it sometimes took me 20 minutes to get out of bed. I couldn't just sit up and get up. I had to roll out off the bed onto my knees, then take a breather, then slowly start to stand up, where my hernia was so bad. But then the the World Cup prelim, the 30-man squad got announced. The prelim squad got announced, and I wasn't in it. So I was like, I need to be ready for the start of next season. So let me, and I want to have a holiday. So let me get the hernia operation done as soon as possible, because I'm not in the prelim squad. So I think it was either the day after the final or 2 days after the final, I had an operation, and then the England squad met up just after that. And then I think Luke Young or someone got injured, and Sven-Goran Eriksson rang my phone and said, Anton, I want you to come and meet up with the squad. I was like, shit, I've just had the operation. And he was like, okay, well, I'll get the England doctors to talk to the West Ham doctors, and we'll see if we can actually wait for you. Like, he wanted to wait for me. And I was like, okay, no problem. I tried my best to get back, but then I just ran out of time. And he rang me and he just said, Anton, I'm sorry, man, but it ain't going to happen. And he just said to me, off the back of the season that you had, I should have put you in the 30-man squad. I now understand that you wouldn't have had the operation if you was in the 30-man squad. So I'm sorry for that. And I think if you would have been in the 30-man squad, you would have went to the World Cup based on the way you did this year. And I put the phone down, bruv. And I put the phone down, and the tears that rolled down my eyes.
Oh, bro.
I'm sorry. Was Rio ever on the phone to you at that point, like ringing you saying anything?
Yeah, he wanted me there more than I'm sure people have heard him speak about it. He wanted me there more than I wanted to be there. You know, that's the relationship that we have. But he was gutted when it didn't happen, just like I was, and that was probably my worst summer as a footballer to date. Missing the penalty that have evidently lost my club the FA Cup, and then obviously missing out on the World Cup squad. Let me tell you that summer was dark and deep for me.
Well, no, I'll be honest. As a West Ham fan, no West Ham fans look back on your time at West Ham and remember the penalty miss. It is the Scaloni clearance that everyone remembers. That's not on you. I remember two things from that game, or three things. Obviously, the Gerrard finish, the Scaloni clearance, and the Paul Konchesky freak goal. They're the three main things that I remember. Yeah,
well, going back to that finals, like, that is one of the greatest FA Cup finals of all time, like without a shadow of a doubt. Luckily, like, I was lucky to be there and see it in person and see grown Cockneys around me crying. And bear in mind, I'm a Chelsea fan, and I shouldn't want any other London club to.
You're what, a Chelsea fan? I'm long enough.
Yeah. For my sins, I'm a Chelsea fan, but seeing West Ham in that final, and obviously, like I said, my brother was playing at the time. He's actually got a picture with you when he was younger, proper younger. That's when you got a bit more hair, when the hairline's a bit more forward. And yeah, that West Ham team just had a different kind of soul about it. And I think this kind of West Ham team have got it. But taking you back to the final in 06, there were some ballers, not only for your team, but for Liverpool. And people call it the Gerrard finals, much more than that. But Gerrard had the moments that stood out. Explain what it's like to play against a player like Steven Gerrard, because I've heard from different people, it's like he's got an aura, he's got a different type of energy, gets compared to Scholes, gets compared to Lampard. When they talk about Gerrard, they talk about aura. So talk about playing against a player of that caliber.
Yeah, I think it wasn't just him. They had Djibril Cissé at the time was playing, Xavi Alonso, obviously Jamie Carragher.
Pepe Reina in goal.
When you're in the tunnel, I mean, to be honest with you, I didn't look at none of that. I was so focused on what it is that I was doing, and proving that I was the best centre back on the pitch. I was so focused and so driven by that all the outside noise weren't around. I was so intrigued, and I couldn't wait to play in the FA Cup final. I took a lot in. I took a lot more in that game than I did any other game, because you don't get the opportunity to play in the FA Cup final every year. And there's some players that have played in the Premier League that are Premier League greats, by the way, and some English greats that have never played in an FA Cup final. And I can say that I've done that. So I took a lot more in that day. I actually felt more pressure in the playoff final the year before than I did in the FA Cup final. if that's which is crazy. But Gerrard's aura on the pitch is unquestionable. In a tunnel, yeah, I'm fully focused. I weren't looking at, but when he's on the pitch, he don't talk a lot, but he leads by example in what he does. And some of the things he does, you sit there and you go, ooh. Like he has that effect on you where you go, ooh. And I think he's taken that leading by example into management, which is why I have so much respect for him as a person. The way he's dealt with situations as a manager through his time, whether it be the racism stuff when he was at Rangers, the way he dealt with that, the way he backed his players in that moment, the way he's dealt with obviously bringing in Coutinho at Aston Villa and making Aston Villa his team. I just look at that and I see glimpses of the captain that I played against. He leads by example on a training pitch. And he's someone that you want to run through a brick wall for, and he's carried that into management.
And you can see that with Steven Gerrard, like you say, the players that he's brought in, the fact that he's managed to convince a player like Felipe Coutinho, who was sold for 100+ million a few years ago, and he's now playing at Villa Park for Steven Gerrard. He's really turned them around since he took over from Dean Smith. And when you use a word like leadership, it's something that defines Steven Gerrard, and it's something that he embodies as a player and a manager. You talked about him standing up for Camara, his player at Rangers, in terms of racism. And obviously this is something that you talk about a lot in terms of racism. There's something that, whether it's unfortunate, whether it's fortunate, but it's a thing, it's defined your career. And before, I'm going to talk about the incident in 2011 when you were at QPR with John Terry. Before that, I knew you as Anton Ferdinand, the stalwart defender, the player that does his job. Like you know what I mean? We know you as a footballer. And I never really knew about you off the pitch. I never really heard anything. Like you, only West Ham fans who are really in the nitty gritty would like know about your personality. It was only after the incident with John Terry when you played for QPR, when he said what he said to you, was that when I found out about Anton Ferdinand, the person. And it wasn't the case that this incident defined your career, but it's had a big part in your career in terms of the following sequences and in terms of where it's gone off the pitch and on the pitch as well. So talk me through that day in 2011 when you played against Chelsea and John Terry said the things that he said to you.
It was what people fail to understand. I've known JT, I knew JT a long time before that. Obviously, Rio and him played together for England, but I had known him and a few others who played in that team, Ashley Cole and others. Obviously, Frank Lampard. I've known Frank Lampard a very, very long time. And to be playing in a game which was a massive West London derby, and to be winning that game for QPR, and I think it was the first time QPR had beat Chelsea at home at Loftus Road in something like 15 years, you know. And one thing I must say about my career is when we played derbies and stuff, I always, the ones that we won, I always had a feeling walking into the games in that week that we were going to win it. I always had that type of feeling. Like I've been in, like with Sunderland, I was in the first team to ever beat Newcastle at the Stadium of Light and stuff like that. So I always was, when it came to derbies, I was always, my derby games have always been quite good. And that's what this one was. And Darren Lewis says it on my documentary. He says like it was one of the filthiest games he's ever seen in a West London derby. And it was. There was 2 or 3 players sent off. Things were going against Chelsea. We were winning, and I was concentrating on doing my job, but also understanding what was just about to happen. Chelsea, John Terry came up for a long throw. The ball came in. We was in the box. I eased him out of the way. And then all of a sudden, he went down theatrically, tried to get a penalty. And I said to him, like, why are you going down for? Get up. What's up with you? And we got into a barging match, and the game stopped. And we got into it on the pitch verbally, and that was that. And then when the game kicked off again, I was still none of the wiser of what had happened, because he had jogged back into his position. I was in my position, and what was said from like 20, 25 yards away. Or what he allegedly said, I should say, because I have to say that because of the court case. But what he allegedly said was from like 20, 25 yards away. So I didn't actually hear anything. But it was viral before the game had even finished. I remember that people were saying it was viral before the game had finished. Everyone had seen what he had said. And then when the game finished, I went into the dressing room, and still to this day, I don't know why. It's the one and only time ever in my footballing career that I never checked my phone to see what was going on in the world. Normally, everyone checks their phone after the game. I didn't check my phone after the game for some reason. I don't know. No one else in my dressing room did. And then I went upstairs to see my family. I walked in with a bounce in my step. We just beat Chelsea. I was buzzing. And my mum, my wife, my friend, and my wife's brother, my brother-in-law, kept asking me, Anton, are you all right? Are you all right? And I was like, yeah, of course I am. And my mum said to me, did John Terry racially abuse you, Anton? And I went, no. And then my brother-in-law said, oh, you better watch this then. Or my wife said, you better watch this then, and handed me her brother's phone. And I watched it, and obviously I saw what was said. I gave back the phone. I went to walk downstairs to go and address it. And the only person who could have stopped that was there that day, which was my mum. Out of respect for her, I came back. She shouted me, and I came back just because it was my mum that was calling me. Anybody else, I would have kept walking. And she just said, I know what you want to do, but today's not the day. If you go and do what you want to do, you'll be ostracized for it. So I said, okay, no problem. And then that was the start of stuff that unraveled. I mean, I tried to turn on my BlackBerry Curve afterwards, because I went to turn it on, and the BlackBerry just died instantly because there's so much data trying to come through it. It just instantly died, and it never turned on again. And from that day on, things just transpired, things just unraveled, and the ripple effect of the effect that it had on me. At the time, I didn't realize it. It wasn't until I'd done the documentary that I understood the actual impact that it did have on me. And it was a case of, just as I said, and you've alluded to it, it had a bearing on my career. And what people don't see is I played 11 years in the Premier League prior to that. But after that incident, I think I made 13 appearances in the Premier League after, and after that 13, I never played in the Premier League again. And that wasn't because I was a good player. Wasn't a good player. I was a good player. I was a good Premier League player. But the stigma of being involved in probably, arguably, or if not the biggest racism case, well, it is the biggest racism case within England, but arguably the biggest racism case within world football, the stigma of being attached to that is what I think, or not what I think, is what I know hindered my Premier League career, and why I had to move out of England and go and play in Turkey.
And see, and with that, you see it again. I told you I'm a nerd when it comes to that stuff. I look at your career, look at your stats, look at the leagues you're playing in. Boom, 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 boom. Gets to a point, 2011, and then your Premier League career kind of is decimated after that for various reasons that we've alluded to. And you touched on your documentary there. I've watched it multiple times. I recommend anyone who hasn't watched it, go and watch it. Anton Ferdinand, Football, Racism and Me. And that's nearly a decade after the incident, come out in 2020. Powerful stuff. And it seems like from your point of view, well, just like from knowing you, there's no closure to being racially abused, or allegedly racially abused. There's no closure to that. There's no way to kind of eliminate the words that have been said. People say it's just words. It ain't just words. It's something that sticks with you, and you have to find a way of dealing with it, being a black man or black woman. But there is also mechanisms to find closure and find peace within yourself. And I found, like, when I watched that documentary, I see your reaction to it. I see the way that you talk about it and how proud you are of it, and like what it's done in terms of your career post making that documentary. It's kind of giving you a new lease of life. How much did that documentary kind of give you closure, in a sense, to that whole situation that happened when QPR played Chelsea in 2011?
I think you've hit the nail on the head in terms of closure. You never, ever really get closure when somebody's allegedly saying something to you because of the way you look or the color of your skin. It's hard to get closure. But one thing I do understand is the power of media, the power of being a footballer. And I understood that racism is bigger than me and him put together. And I want to make everlasting change. That's in me, to try and make everlasting change. My mum, when she was alive, that's what she was about, helping people. And to continue her legacy, I want to be known as somebody who helped people. And that was one of the reasons why I wanted to do a documentary, and the reasons why I wanted to have John Terry on the documentary and Ashley Cole on the documentary, because in my head I was thinking, how powerful would it be if 2 or 3 people that were involved in arguably the best racism, the biggest racism case within world football, if they came together to show the world how not to deal with racism as an institution, how powerful would that be? And that's what I was basing, that was the reasons why I wanted John Terry on and Ashley Cole on the documentary. It wasn't to be about me versus him. I never wanted that. And BBC will tell you, I had numerous arguments with BBC because I didn't want to make it the way that they wanted it. It had to be my way, otherwise I wasn't doing it. And the reason why I had to be my way is because I knew if it was made in the wrong way, I may never work in football again. I may never work in media again. And I said this to BBC and I was like, what? You think that would happen? And I said, yeah. I said, I never played in the Premier League again. So what do you think it will do to me now that I'm not actually playing football anymore? They can put me in a box and throw me away. I said, so if it's not done the way that if that happens to me, I'd rather that happen if I do it my way. If it happens and I do it your way and it happens, I'm always going to live with that regret that I shouldn't have done it my own way. You know, and fair play to BBC One, they understood that and allowed me to do it the way that I wanted to do it. And son, doing a documentary, I never ever once thought it would be therapeutic. I didn't do it for them reasons, but it became a therapeutic process for me. But after I've done a documentary, touch wood, I have to say, I've slept like a baby ever since, and it became a therapeutic process for me, and it gave me back my voice. There's a lot of things that I held and I took on my shoulders in terms of not speaking out and not speaking up, going against what I was brought up to do, and that hurt me. And I carried that burden for a long, long time. And once I did speak, I no longer felt like a hypocrite. I mean, and the reason why I use the word hypocrite, and Quaker, you know, as I've spoken about this many, many times with you, a lot of racism stuff happened after that. And whenever racism stuff was happened within football, my phone was always the first one to ring. Anton, can you speak on this? Can you speak on that, please? But I always felt like a hypocrite. I felt like I couldn't speak. And the reason why is because if I spoke about someone else's situation, all the presenter would have had to say was, Anton, how can you speak about their situation, but you've not spoken about your own? And I'd make them right. And because I hadn't, I felt like a hypocrite. So that's why when other situations happen, like Leanne Sanderson and Eni Aluko situation, I wanted to speak about that, but I felt like a hypocrite. And I felt like I'd let them down by not speaking. And me and Leanne have had conversations about this prior and since doing a documentary. And I'm grateful that she understands the reasons why, the same as Eni. But it wasn't until I'd done the documentary that I felt like I found my voice again, and which is why I'm so passionate about the topic of conversation. I'm not stupid. I know we're not going to get change overnight. Do I want change overnight? 100% I do. But we're part of a process of chopping down something and getting rid of something that's been there for hundreds of years. And it's going to take time to do it. And I know that as long as I hand the baton over to the next generation with the conversation being in a better place, I feel like I've done my job, and that's what I'm working towards.
Yeah, I totally agree. And, from a very privileged white man's perspective, I'm very much, I echo everything you said there. And I'm glad that from your perspective, you feel that you're much more at peace with the situation and a weight lifted from your shoulders when you essentially went through that creative process of getting the documentary out there into the world. And like Kwaku said, I would recommend anyone go and watch that. You say that about passing the baton on to the next generation in terms of having the conversation and, even having the conversation being such an important topic. For any young footballers going through racism now, what's your biggest piece of advice to drive and trying to eradicate one of the most evil things, in the game still?
As I said on the documentary, I'm available. If you need to speak, if you need someone to speak for you, I'll be that person. I'll be governed by you and how I speak and what I say 100%, but I'm here to help. I'm here to support. I felt like it was me versus John Terry in football. It's not a nice place to be. I wouldn't want anyone to feel that way. I wouldn't want any victim to feel like the perpetrator. So if anyone's going through that and they feel like they need support, I'm easy to reach on social media. I'm easy to, or my agency, they have an info page, the info address that you can email, info@newera, globalsportsmanagement.com. I think anything like that, if I can help, I'm willing to do it because I don't want people to feel the way that I feel. And you say it there from someone who's, you said, white privilege background. I think, and I talk about this a lot, I think understanding what an ally is and what an ally should look like is important. And I think that what I'm liking and what I like to see at the moment, could there be more of it? Yes. But what I'm seeing at the moment is the conversation is now diverse. It's not only ethnic minorities talking about racism. It is privileged white society that are also talking about racism the same way that I speak about racism, which is a fantastic thing, I would say. And with that happening, that's where I can see there being change. And the reason why I say that is because the oppressor will never oppress their own. They can't afford to. So as long as people from white heritage continue to speak about racism the same way that I speak about racism, we're always going to feel like there's an era change in there. Do I want to see more of it? Of course I do, but that's what we call allyship. Allyship is so important. If you're willing to sit there or stand there and hear someone say something racial or any form of discrimination, and you sit there and you let it go, you're part of the problem. No more is that a thing. Address people. No, you shouldn't be speaking like that.
And that's not even just lip service from you. That, like, you live that truly, and I've seen that with you, working with you, and like you're saying to people, your DMs are open or your company's DM like messages are open. I've seen that with you. Whether it be Caroline Dubois come on the show on Thursday, she's talking about what it's like to be a little sister. She's Daniel Dubois' little sister, just got into the boxing game, and then you hit her up saying, like, if you ever need to talk about anything, hit me up. We had a guy come on the show, Humphrey Agbovia, who's got a company, Lionheart Football, or Lionheart Group, and same thing to him in person. It's not lip service. Like, your messages are open, and I feel like what you've done and the voice that you found post that incident and also post making your documentary is a credit to see, man. It's a credit to yourself. And when you talk about emerging out of Rio's shadow, you've done it on the pitch, but off the pitch, what you've done is tenfold, and the mark that you've left in the game cannot be understated, man. So credit to you for that, because what you do for the future legacy of people is incredible. Obviously, talking about heavy stuff here, I want to kind of end this on a lighter note. I see you flexing with Van Persie shirt in the background, with Owen shirt in the background. I know you've got a few in your collection. You talked about the players that you played with before. I want to know who first of all, your top 3 players that you played against. And then after that, I want to hear your top 3 players that you played with.
Okay, so firstly, these ain't my shirts. These are, I'm in my agency at the moment, Nura. These are from Nura. If you look up, there's Rio and Vidic at the top.
Nice.
But yeah, I've got a Van Persie shirt. I ain't got an Owen shirt, but I've got a Van Persie shirt. The 3 best players, the number 1, Nicholas Anelka. Hardest player to play against, hands down. He had everything. Aguero and Fernando Torres.
What a list.
It's not a bad top 3, is it? It's not a bad top 3.
They're the hardest players to play against for me.
And then what with your best players that you played with? This is a tougher one.
So my centre-back partner would have to be Danny Gabidon, best defender I've played with.
Welsh wizard.
Pardon?
I said a Welsh wizard.
Yep. Carlos Tevez was fantastic to play with. Like a joke. An absolute joke. Third one. Who's the third one?
Mascherano?
No, he didn't really play.
No, yeah, I know he didn't play, but I was going to.
In terms of what he's done in his career, yeah, he's in there. Michael Carrick,
absolute baller, underappreciated. I think he would be, if he was playing now, he'd be one of the best midfielders in the world. He's like, he was before his generation, 100%. That's one question I want to ask about Javier Mascherano, actually, because obviously being a West Ham fan, I remember coming home from Kwaku's house. We're going back years. PlayStation was out, multi-tap was out. I get home, dinner's ready for me on the table. Sky Sports is there, and there's Alan Bardew's, on the TV with Carlos Tevez and Javier Mascherano, signing for the club. It was huge. Javier Mascherano never really did it for West Ham. But what was he like in training? Obviously, we saw it on the pitch with Tevez. You think about the goals he scored against Tottenham. You think about the goal on the last day where he kept us up against Man United. We saw it with Tevez. No one could have anticipated the career that Mascherano would go on to have. What was he like in training? Did he do that kind of thing? Was he a high performer?
He trained how he played. So how you see him playing for Barcelona, for Liverpool, that's how he trained. Tevez was actually the opposite.
Yeah.
Tevez was probably one of the worst trainers I've ever trained with, but when match day came, he was the best. He's the only player that I've seen who's been able to switch it on and off. I couldn't do that. If I trained rubbish during the week, I knew I was going to be rubbish on a Saturday. If I didn't train at a certain intensity through the week, it wasn't always about quality, but if I didn't train at a certain intensity throughout the week, I knew on a Saturday I'd be rubbish. He used to come out, the only time he come alive was in a shooting practice or doing like a 7v7 tight little games. Other than that, in the keep balls, he just tried to nutmeg and just giggled. But the only time he come alive was a shooting practice or a 7v7 game.
That's mad. I think that's the best way to wrap it up. I mean, everyone knows who you are. You're Anton Ferdinand. But where can they find you on socials, Anton?
Yeah, so I'm on, I think everything. I'm on Twitter, Anton_Ferdinand. Instagram is Anton_Ferdinand with a 5 on it. LinkedIn, Anton Ferdinand. Yeah, man, they're the socials that I'm on. As I said, I do get inundated with requests. I do get inundated with messages, but I do go through them. So as I said, any young aspiring footballers who need any help in terms of if there is racism or anything, or not just that, or what I would say, I've got a business called Ferdinand Football Group, which is based in Essex, which gives back to the children around Essex, and it's a football group. But we also franchise, and if there's anyone who has their own football business, but want to expand, want to get bigger, want to use my brand, there's a conversation to be had, because as long as it's done right, I'm willing to put my name to something, and I'm not just somebody who just puts their name to it and don't do nothing. I put my name to it and I'm present. And we've just become a year old, but anyone, anywhere national around England, if you want to be part of Ferdinand Football Group, want to bring your football academy into my football academy and use my brand, I'm willing to have a conversation. And if I can enhance your business and make your business bigger and better than what it is, then it's definitely a conversation to have. So if you want to find me, Ferdinand Football Group on Instagram, info@ferdinandfootballgroup.com, and let's have a conversation.
That's how you can tell it's serious, man. Because when we ask people to do plugs, it's normally Insta, it's normally Twitter. But when someone's saying hit me up on LinkedIn as well, so that's how you know they're a serious man. And yeah, like the truth is in the words as well. Like it's never just lip service of Anton. It's always the truth, and he's always willing to help. But man, we appreciate you coming on. We've had you for longer than we promised, but it was a good chat, man. And yeah, this has been one of the better ones that we've had. So I'm looking forward to this one being released. But in the meantime, make sure that you follow us on socials. We're on Twitter, WTF Podcast 90. We're on Instagram at We Talk Football Podcasts. We're also on LinkedIn. We're on Apple Music. We're on Spotify. So make sure you like this video, subscribe to our channel. We'll be back with more videos very, very soon.
Cheers, guys. Catch you next week.